Everyone loves Friday the 13th Part 4, Final Chapter. But is it overrated? Well, let's do a retrospective, and let's take a look at how this movie came together, and go through the story a little bit, and at the end, we'll see, is this movie overrated? After being hung, and then taken out by an axe to the head, at the end of Friday the 13th Part 3, Jason was dead for real. Wait, Part 3 made $36.6 million at the box office on a $2.25 million budget? No, he ain't dead. Just joking. Let's make another. By this point, Frank Mancuso Jr. was tired of making Friday the 13th and the formula. Even with the huge profit margins these films were making for the studio, he was afraid of what it would do to his professional reputation, and decided, let's end it now and kill off the golden goose. At this point, the theaters were flooded with 80s slasher flicks, trying to become the next Friday the 13th or Halloween, and Mancuso thought, why not go out on top, while we're still making very successful movies? So let me know in the comments, should Friday the 13th Final Chapter have been the last movie in this franchise, or are you happy that they continued it? After directing Friday the 13th Part 2 and 3, Steve Miner decided he had done everything he could with the series and wanted to do other projects. So Mancuso tapped Joe Zito, fresh off The Prowler, to direct their fourth and final installment. Curious enough, the studio wanted Zito to write and direct the film, which he was not a writer, but the studio kept pushing until he agreed to write and direct it. What the studio didn't know was even though he agreed to write it, he contacted his writing friend Bruce to help hatch out the story ideas, and then paid out of his own pocket writer Barney Cohen to write the script. Zito will come up with the story with Bruce, and every night call Barney Cohen and talk to him about what the story was going to take place. Let's just say when the Writers Guild of America found out about this, they were not happy, and Zito got in big trouble with them. Zito wanted to do a little bit different stuff with this movie. He wanted almost all of it to take place at night, which, I mean, most of them do. He wanted a rainstorm for most of it, which, come on, Part 1 and Part 2. He wanted a child protagonist, which was not normal at the time. And he wanted this boy to have a pet dog. And for some weird reason, he also wanted to put twins in the movie. Well, he was lucky on that one, because during casting, Camille Moore auditioned to play another character. And during the audition, the casting agents found out she was a twin. They told her if she convinced her twin sister to come in and audition, they would both get parts in the movie. A pre-Back to the Future Crispin Glover was chosen to play Jimmy because Zito knew he would get something entertaining and different out of his performance. Judy Arlington was hired to play Samantha. She had offers from 2 other films at the time, but both fell through, and this ended up becoming her first feature film. Lawrence Moneson was in UCLA and had to choose to miss finals week to be in this movie, but he chose Friday the 13th Part 4 to play Ted. Peter Barton was already a heartthrob and on lots of girl magazines at the time. He co-starred with Friday the 13th's own Amy Steele on a series called The Power of Matthew Starr. She had to talk him into accepting the role of Doug. Kimberly Beck was hired to play co-protagonist Trish Jarvis. She said this about the series: I had never seen any of the Friday films, and I did not want to see any of them. I still have never seen any of them. I just don't like that genre at all. But she needed a job, so she accepted the role. Corey Feldman was hired to play Trish's brother Tommy. He would be the other protagonist in this movie. And the Tommy character would be the main character in the next 3 movies. He was only 13 at the time. And last but not least, Ted White stepped in to play Jason, a very experienced stuntman and body double for 40 years for the likes of John Wayne and Clark Gable. He gives us a legendary performance. But the biggest thing this movie had going for it was the return of the horror icon himself, Tom Savini. Tom Savini jumped at the idea of being able to kill off one of the villains he helped create in the first place. By this time, he was a big name in the movie industry, and the cast was very excited to see what Savini had in mind for their character deaths. Production was shot from October 1983 to January 1984 in Topanga Canyon, California, and Zaca Lake. Not sure if I said that right, but that's what we're going with. It was in production during Halloween that year, so Eric Anderson and Kimberly Beck took the young Corey Feldman to a local subdivision to go trick-or-treating, That's a pretty cool story. So let's do a quick rundown through this movie. We are at the crime scene from the end of part 3 at night. All the bodies are picked up, including Jason, who is taken to a morgue. We have a pervert Doc who becomes victim number 1 with a gnarly saw to the neck and then his head twisted. If you want to see this scene how it was really supposed to be, check out the special edition Blu-ray collection. They have all these deleted scenes and extended scenes, and this scene was crazy and very graphic. The nurse also becomes a victim to Jason with a choke and then a stab. Next, we get our new group of teens who have rented a cabin at Crystal Lake. Jimmy and Ted with the dead fuck running joke. Haha guys. They literally say it over and over in this movie. Doug and Sarah, the couple we deserve in this movie. Paul and Samantha, the couple that don't really get along in this movie. No ride for that hitchhiker, but look, a quick death from Jason. Also not right now, we get to see a tombstone for Pamela Voorhees here. This is the first time we ever knew her first name was Pamela. All the other movies, she was just known as Mrs. Voorhees. We also meet the 2 new protagonists, Trish and Tommy Jarvis, and their mother in the house next door to the cabin the teens rented. Tommy makes these really cool masks and effects. They're really cool, but very unrealistic for a kid of that age. I mean, this is Tom Savini stuff right here, and we're supposed to think that Corey Feldman made this when he was like 12 or 13. We also meet hitchhiker Rob. We later find out that this is the brother of Sandra from part 2, and he is out looking for the killer. The teens meet these twins on the way to the lake, where they all go skinny dipping, and then later they go to the cabin to party. Yes, look at Jimmy dance. Standout scene here from Crispin Glover. I mean, this is a standout scene for the whole franchise actually, and humanity as a whole actually. Look at him, it looks like he swallowed a battery or something. Paul chooses a twin over Samantha, so she decides to go skinny dipping by herself. Bad idea. As she's laying in the raft naked, Jason pops out of the water and stabs her through the bottom. Paul realizes he's dumb for his decision and goes out looking for her. He gets in the water and then gets a harpoon or something like that into his stomach and then lifted straight up into the air. But look at him here. Doesn't that water look freezing? Well, it is freezing, and we'll talk about that later. Rob hears screaming in his tent, and at one point later, almost kills Trish because he goes totally crazy. The Jarvis family loses power, and the mom's killed off screen. Ted finds a nudie film and finds it way too funny. We get some sweet scenes with Sarah. She really could have been the lead of this movie. Her character is really sweet. She showers with Doug and then goes to dry off. And then Jason comes in and breaks through the glass and crushes Doug's head against the wall. Sarah finds his body and then runs screaming, but then Jason kills her with an axe through the door. Jimmy just got it on with one of the twins, and then goes downstairs for some wine, but gets a corkscrew into his hand, and then a machete to the head. One twin is killed off as she leaves the cabin, but we only get to see it in the shadows from the thunderstorm. I really like this shot. It's one of my favorite shots in the movie. The other twin is thrown through the window onto a car. Both twins got pretty good deaths if you ask me. Ted gets a knife to the back of his head while he's watching one of his nudie films. Another classic scene from this franchise. I mean, if you're going to make a compilation, you know that one's going to show up in there. Now that leaves Trish, Tommy, and Rob. Oh wait, Rob just got killed off in the basement. Never mind, Tommy and Trish. They go and hide in their house and nail the door shut. Rob's body is then thrown through the window. As Tommy backs up towards the other window, Jason busts through the window behind him and grabs him. He busted through there like the Kool-Aid Man. That is another legendary scene if you ask me. After hitting him in the neck, they escape. But Jason busts through the door, and probably the greatest scene in this whole movie actually. He chases them up the stairs where they barricade themselves in a room. As he breaks through, they crash a TV onto his head. He lays in the hallway and they try to sneak by, but nope, Jason's still alive. And look you guys, he's running, once again. And in my opinion, it's scarier this way. To get away from Jason, Trish jumps through the window. Jason goes down to find her, but she's not there anymore. Tommy gets another idea after reading newspaper clippings and goes into the bathroom and starts shaving his head to look like a younger Jason. Trish fights Jason and even hits him in the hand with a machete, splitting his hand basically in half, but you know what? Jason doesn't seem to mind as it barely slows him down. As he's about to attack Trish, Tommy comes down the stairs and yells, "Jason!" Jason gets confused and starts walking towards him, and eventually his mask gets knocked off by Trish. Look, he's looking different from part 3 already. And then bam! Machete to the head by Tommy. We think he's dead laying there. Tommy sees his hand twitch, and then Tommy goes nuts and starts hacking over and over and over. Man, you don't mess with Tommy Jarvis. And I just gotta say, when Jason gets hit with the machete, and then falls to the ground, and then his head slowly slides down the machete, that is one of the coolest horror effects I think I've ever seen in a movie. This is some of Tom Savini's best work if you ask me. So now Trish and Tommy are in the hospital, they hug, and then Tommy gives this very sinister look, like maybe he's gonna be the killer in the next one. And that's the end of the movie. Jason's dead, right? Yeah, Jason's dead. Wait, did you guys notice something about the ending of this one? Yes, this is the first movie in this franchise that does not end with the dream sequence. Do you guys want to know something? They did actually record one for this movie. They just didn't end up using it. So as you're watching, these are scenes from the dream sequence that was cut. Unfortunately, the audio doesn't exist anymore for it. But I'm kind of glad they cut it. First off, it would have been 4 movies in a row where you did this. And this one just didn't hit the same as the other 3. Not as scary or clever or as fun, so I'm glad they finally moved away from it. Now, when I did Friday the 13th Part 3, I talked about the barn and how they kept going into it over and over. In this movie, the filmmakers seem to be obsessed with windows or glass breaking. I mean, let's go through some of the scenes. Look, here's Jason and one of the twins. Jason and Doug. Here's Trish jumping through the window. Rob gets thrown through. Look, Tommy gets pulled through by Jason. Even the dog goes through the window. Man, if you're in the window business, move to Crystal Lake. There is a great business opportunity there for you. Just try not to get killed from Jason. So in this movie, Jason is an absolute beast. He's faster. He's more ferocious than in the past movies. Ted White killed it in this movie as Jason. The downside of this movie with Jason is I feel like they cut away way too fast. Until we really get to the end scenes, any scene with Jason, it's like he pops up for 2 seconds, kills somebody really fast, and then bam, gone. The camera never really settles on him for any length of time, and it's always in the darkness. We barely get to see him actually. That's polar opposite of what we got in part 3, where we get long shots of Jason in the barn, long shots of him outside by the canoe, and a lot of that in part 3 was well lit. Maybe it's just because I love part 3 so much in those scenes. This is just a little gripe. It doesn't destroy the movie or anything. I'm just saying I wish the camera would have stayed on Jason a little bit more and it wasn't so dark. As far as Ted White during filming, he and Joe Zito did not see eye to eye. In the book Crystal Lake Memories, Ted says this: "We got along for about 6 or 7 days, but after that, he became kind of a bully. And I'm not that kind of guy you can bully around. I'm not a tough guy or nothing like that. I just don't like to see people get hurt or abused. I told Joe several times to kiss my ass." A prime example of this was the filming of Samantha's death scene in the lake. Remember earlier when I said that water looks cold? Well, they shot this movie in California in winter, and the nights were about 40 degrees, so that water was freezing cold. Actress Judy Aronson was freezing because she was in the water so long for the takes. She was even crying at some point, asking to be taken out. According to White, Joe said, "Be with you in a minute." Ted had had enough. He told everybody, "Get her out of the water or he walks." Joe Zito remembers a little bit differently and says Ted White was the one who wanted to get out of the water, and Judy was fine. But when Judy Aronson was asked, she basically backed up Ted White's version of the story. "Ted White, you were a legend. I raise a glass in your honor. Rest in peace, sir." While filming the later scenes with Corey Feldman, he became very sick from wearing the bald cap and started to have a fever. So when he was shooting the scenes where he was hacking up Jason with the machete, he felt like crap. But being a good sport, he still shot those scenes, and it looks great. Kudos, kid. Filming was completed in January 1984 and originally slated for an October release. But then producers were very happy with the early shots coming in, and also saw an opportunity in April. They decided to bump this movie up 6 months to April. So Joe Zito, Frank Mancuso Jr., and a bunch of editors were moved into a house where they basically edited non-stop until the movie was finished. Knowing the MPAA was going to cut a lot of scenes, they purposely recorded longer shots. That way, they could knowingly cut a little bit to really put what they wanted into the movie. It still took multiple tries through the MPAA to get the movie the R rating, but they were happy that they got to put most of their shots they wanted in, especially the scene with Jason and the machete at the end. Friday 13th Final Chapter was released April 13th, 1984, and grossed $11.2 million on its opening weekend, on its way to a total worldwide gross of $32.9 million. Critics, as always, didn't like it, but some did seem to say it was a little bit better than the prior 3 installments. This, overall, seems to be a fan favorite in the series. Most rankings I see of the Friday 13th series, this one is number 1, or number 2, almost never past number 3. And I agree, I do love this movie. This is probably one of the highest quality movies in the series, especially in the original run. So now I ask you, is this movie overrated? Now, when I ask that, I'm not implying this movie is bad. I mean, I don't think anyone can say this movie is bad if you're a horror fan. I'm merely asking, is this really the best movie in the franchise like lots of people say, and lots of people have as number 1 on their rankings? Both can be true. This can be one of the best movies in the franchise and still be slightly overrated. So my answer is, a little bit, yes. Now, before you get too angry at what I just said, let me tell you, I love this movie, and I love this franchise. And for most of my life, I did have this movie as number 1 on my ranking as well. Quality-wise, it is a better movie than the prior 3 in the franchise. And definitely better than most of what came after. This movie also happens to be a perfect representation of an 80s slasher movie. Ted White is amazing as Jason. Tom Savini's effects are top-notch here. And we have characters that we actually care about. So what's my problem? I don't know, it's kind of hard to describe actually. I've been watching all these movies over and over and over to do all these retrospectives. And the more I do it, the more I start liking the other movies, even the bad ones. Those ones become more and more entertaining, and for some reason, something about this movie just doesn't connect as much as it used to me. It's a little bit less entertaining. Now, like I said earlier, Jason in this movie is awesome. But a big issue is there's not enough of him. They do all these really quick shots. I need more Jason. Let the camera linger on him a little bit longer. Take that 2-second shot and make it a 10-second shot. And he's also in the dark for the whole entire movie, so we don't get him lit up. In part 3, we got to see Jason being Jason for long shots. Lots of people also always seem to say that the characters were more developed in this movie. I don't really see that. I don't see them being that much more developed than any other characters in part 1, 2, or 3. I actually think the ones in part 2 are probably more developed than these ones. And this movie does just happen to be a rehash of the same old Friday 13th story and formula. Now, is that a bad thing? No, I love the story and formula. And it's done very well here, but it's still just a rehash and nothing original really. So don't be too angry at me right now. I still love this movie, and it's still high up there on my list. But nowadays, I just don't see myself reaching too much for this one as opposed to some of the other movies. And rewatchability for me is a good indicator on what is the best in a franchise. So just understand, it's all about love for this franchise that I have, and I'm just getting a little nitty-picky and trying to bring up a little bit of conversation. So let's talk about it in the comments. Is Friday 13th Final Chapter the favorite in your ranking? Let me know. After making so much money at the box office, there was no way Paramount was going to let this franchise die. So of course, they greenlit Friday 13th Part 5. Frank Mancuso Jr., on the other hand, he had had enough. Now, he would stay on as an executive producer going forward, but as he put it, that's when I stepped back as far as being involved with the series as intimately, and after that, quite frankly for me, it was never quite the same again. Kudos to you, Frank Mancuso Jr. Thank you for all the memories you gave us on these movies. So that'll do it for this one. Let us know in the comments if you think this series should have ended after the final chapter and Jason should have stayed dead. Or, like me, are you happy they continued it? Even the bad ones. So keep an eye out for the next videos as we keep going through the Friday 13th franchise, including retrospectives on each movie in the series and some other interesting videos on Friday 13th. Thanks for watching.